Hello guys, Robert1 here coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video, and in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 best decks in the format along with Charmander, who is in the background as always. And seeing as we are talking about the top 5 best decks, I want to say this is my own personal opinion along with some of the results that I've been seeing here and there on like Ready to Duel, Zodiac and all of that, getting my thoughts, getting my opinions, and just basically thinking, okay, these decks, in my personal opinion, I've been seeing do really well. I believe they are decks that are very, very strong in this format, and I think they could do very well going down the line as well. So, guys, these are going to be the top 5 decks of the format in my personal opinion. I hope you will enjoy the video, so let's get right into it now. So, guys, at number 5, I have Ellich. And honestly, guys, Ellich is one of the strongest decks in the game right now for a lot of reasons. One, it's a back row deck, and at that, the strongest back row deck in the game, because basically its back row is infinitely recyclable. You can banish the Elixrs and Golden Land cards to get more traps from the deck to interact with your opponent. The deck can run multiple different engines, being that you can run the Dragoon package. Being able to just make Dragoon is absolutely insane. You can run this deck in stuff like Buster Blader if you really want. You can add Invoked, you can add Dogmatica. The deck has a lot of different engines it can actually implicate, and the deck is just really, really strong, being that, oh, put a 3/5 body on board, set 5 trap cards, like, I don't know, Floodgates. You could be setting any really Floodgate cards in the game. You could be setting the anti-spell, you could be setting skill drain, because you don't need to activate your Eldritch's effect. You can just go ahead and summon big 3/5 beat stick and go for game there. With a skill drain on board, you can be running stuff like Rivalry of the Warlords with a zombie world for all you really want to know. Like, this deck can run a lot of different cards and is actually very, very strong, and that's why in my opinion it is number 5. Like, honestly, being a deck that can just run so many different engines, being a deck that can have infinite recyclability, being a deck that doesn't even really lose to cards like Harpy's Feather Duster because they just go ahead and reset all the Golden Land cards at the end of the turn. This deck is really, really strong and really, really powerful, so I feel like Ellich is the 5th best deck in the format and is definitely very, very strong, especially when you incorporate it into all these different kinds of decks with like Red Eyes Fusion, with the Dogmatica cards, with literally any indication of any engine. It really just goes above and beyond when you're playing this deck. So Ellich, number 5, honestly very strong deck. Let's go on to number 4. At number 4, I have Tri-Brigade, and Tri-Brigade I personally think is the 4th best deck for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think it's higher on this list because honestly, with the hit to its consistency and with the loss of Zodiac, the deck has lost a lot of power in the game. So I feel like the deck did take a couple of shots, losing the 2 Tenki and losing the Zodiac engine in general, because, well, no barrage means that they can't get to it as easy. Less Tenkies means you can't guarantee that you're going to draw the Zodiac package. So I feel like the deck has lost a lot of power, but don't get me wrong, the deck is still very, very strong. Still having cards like Revolt to be able to just go ahead and summon a Shirok during your opponent's turn to go ahead and banish any card your opponent controls. Having access into the Ancient Warrior monster to just go ahead and tribute a card you control and return a face-up card your opponent controls to the hand is very, very strong. And being a deck that literally only really needs to open 1 fractal to go into its full combo is a very, very good deck. And the deck has access to a lot of really good cards as well, such as Rescue Cat. Being able to use tons of hand traps in the deck is also a really good thing with Tri-Brigade. Like, you can just run 3 of each Tri-Brigade monster, run a ton of hand traps, and then 3 Revolt, and that is pretty much a good standing Tri-Brigade deck. So honestly, Tri-Brigade is one of the best decks in the format. I don't think it goes above the 4th best deck though, because honestly, losing the Zodiac package, losing 2 Tenki really did hurt the deck quite a bit in my opinion. It lost the consistency that it needs to guarantee that it can always go off, but outside of that, the deck is still really strong, the deck is still really good, and I feel like it is definitely a top contender for this format. So if you guys want to still play it, I would suggest it is one of the best decks in the format, and I think it is number 4 in the format right now. So let's go on to number 3. Number 3, I have Invoked Dogmatica, and honestly, I personally feel this is one of the strongest decks in the games for a lot of reasons. One, it's super consistent. Having so many ways to search your deck, having so many ways to guarantee the Alistair in your hand, and having so many ways to just guarantee that you can make a Winder or you can make a Dogmatica package, have a punishment, is just absolutely insane in my personal opinion, making this deck just really, really strong. But it's also really, really strong because technically Alistair and Nadir's Servant is an FTK when you really think about it, because when you go Alistair, you go ahead and make Mechaba, and when you go Nadir's Servant, you get Ecclesia, which allows you to go ahead and send App Cologne and get the Shadow Schism. And when you think about these cards separate, are not as powerful as you would really think. But think of it this way: if you have those two cards in your hand, you're ending on a board with an Ecclesia, a Dogmatica Punishment, a Mechaba with a Negate, and also a Shadow Winder. And honestly, having a Omni Negate on board, having a Winder that prevents special summons, and also having a pop for any card your opponent summons is actually really, really strong. And because of that, I just think those two cards together on their own is an insane FTK, and this deck is just super consistent, can make a really insane board with negates, and also prevent summoning, and it also can run a ton of hand traps. Like honestly, you could run upwards of up to 15 hand traps in this deck most of the time if you really wanted to, and it's honestly just absolutely insane how good this deck is because of that. So I personally feel like Invoked Dogmatica is number 3. It's a really strong deck, can end on a really strong board that can pretty much stop a lot of decks if it goes first, can play a lot of interruption in the main deck for that matter as well, and I personally feel like the deck is just strong, powerful, and is definitely a good contender for 3rd, but sadly it does lose out on 2nd and 1st because I feel like the fact that obviously you have to draw the cards to go into the combo, your opponent's decks are normally going to make better turn 1 boards than you can actually beat, so I personally feel like there are decks that are better out there, but Invoked is definitely a top contender in this format. And hey, if you open Alistair and Forbidden Droplets, you're 9 times out of 10 going to out those Omni Negate boards anyway. So yeah, number 3, Invoked Dogmatica. Let's go on to number 2. So guys, at number 2, I have Phantom Knights, and honestly, this deck, this format, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. Being a combo deck that is just super consistent and can end on really powerful boards on its own is good enough, but this deck is actually very powerful outside of that as well for a lot of reasons. One, this deck has got the upgrades of Crossout Designated to be able to prevent your opponent from hand trapping you, and has also gained a 2nd emergency teleport to give you more level 3 access from the deck. Just absolutely insane there in general, don't you think? But on top of that, this deck has so many combo extenders, so many ways to play the game, that it's absolutely insane and is able to end on absolutely insane boards with stuff like Dragoons, Utopic Future Dragon, you can end on Zeus, you can end on Appaloozas, you can end with 2 Fogblades set. Like, this deck is absolutely insane and can go into combos with literally 1 card most times. Like literally, I believe you can go into the full combo where you can end on Dragoon plus a Utopic Future Dragon with literally just 1 Tour Guide or 1 Torn Scales in your hand. And because of that, I personally feel like this is an absolutely insane deck. This deck can do so much in the game right now that I think is just absolutely insane. And honestly, if you wanted to play a combo deck this format that's warrior based and is also dark, because of Dark Warriors have always been a decent deck in the game and have popped up several times throughout the longevity of this game, that honestly, PK Fire, Phantom Knights is an absolutely insane deck this format that can end on so many good things and can just do so much in the game that I personally think it is definitely the 2nd best deck in the game for that reason alone. So number 2 is Phantom Knights. Let's go on to number 1. Okay guys, so at number 1 I have Drytron, and in all honesty, this deck is the best deck for a couple of reasons. One, it didn't take any hits on the ban list. Like honestly, nothing. It kept its Eva, it got limited, so it didn't lose anything because the deck only really needed 1 Eva. The deck still has all of its consistency cards and all of its Omni Negate board stuff, so it's still perfectly fine how it was. It's the same as it was last format. 2, the deck is super consistent, being able to use stuff like Drytron Alpha, being able to use stuff like Cyber Emergency, being able to use Drytron Nova, Preparations of Rites, Pre-Preparations of Rites, Diviner of the Herald. The deck has so many ways to search the game that you're barely ever going to brick and you're barely ever going to lose consistency. So yeah, deck's still super consistent, and 3, the end board this deck can make is absolutely insane. Having a Herald of Perfection or Ultimateness on the board with like 2 fairies in hand, 1 being an Eva and 1 being something else, being able to just banish those with the Eva to get 2 more negates, to have 4 Omni negates with just the Herald of Protection or Ultimateness alone. Absolutely insane. And also being able to end a board along with that with a Dragoon. You're not gonna be able to win that game if your opponent makes Dragoon plus Herald of Perfection / Ultimateness. So yeah, Drytron being able to make that kind of board is absolutely insane. And honestly, they can do it consistently as well, guys. So that's why I'm honestly mentioning it, because being able to end on Herald of Perfection / Ultimateness, and a Dragoon with potentially like an IP Masquerena for an additional disruption. Yeah, guys, honestly, Drytron is just absolutely insane being able to end on that kind of board, and I don't see this deck not being the best deck, seeing as, yeah, any deck that can literally barely lose to any hand traps outside of Ash and Droll and still being able to play through an Ash Blossom, like, it's absolutely insane. So I personally feel like Drytron is number 1 because of that. But guys, that's my list though. Honestly, these 5 decks that I've talked about, I think are the best decks. Like, you could rearrange them in any order, really. Like, the only deck that I think does deserve to stay where it is tri-brigade because of a lot of the power it lost. But guys, that's just my thoughts and opinions though. Like, what do you personally think? Do you think my list is wrong? Do you think my list is right? Do you think you would change anything on my list in particular? Because honestly, there are a lot of decks you can actually play in the format right now, like outside of these, like one being Virtual World, another one could literally be anything. Like, you could play literally anything right now and do pretty well. Like, Prank Kids is still a viable option, just one Meow Meow Mew. But yeah, guys, that's all I really have to say. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think my list is right? Do you think my list is wrong? Do you think you would change anything in general? And I hope you did enjoy the video outside of that. But guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Check out the links in the description. And yeah, guys, I think these are the best decks. But what do you think? Later all.